Good evening. It is a privilege to be here today to share a message that is both powerful and personal. I want to speak to you about something that has the ability to transform your life, and that is the profound truth that you should never give up, because God has something amazing in store for you. Life is filled with challenges, setbacks, and unexpected turns, and it is easy to feel overwhelmed or discouraged. But the truth is, every setback has a purpose, and each challenge you face is positioning you for something greater. The first thing we must understand is that every setback has a purpose. It's so easy to look at obstacles in life as roadblocks, but if you shift your perspective, you'll realize that they are merely stepping stones. God never allows anything in your life that doesn't have a purpose. Whether it's a failure in business, a personal relationship, or an opportunity that didn't come through, God is at work behind the scenes. He uses challenges to build your character, sharpen your skills, and refine your strength. You see, challenges are not the enemy, they are tools that position you for greatness. What you may see as a delay or an interruption is actually God's way of preparing you for what He has in store. You are not a victim of your circumstances, you are a victor. And this moment of struggle is refining you for the victory ahead. Now, trust is an essential part of this process. Trust the process. The journey you are on may not always make sense. You might be in a season where things are unclear, where you're unsure of your next step, and where every door seems to be closed. But remember that God's timing is perfect, and His plan for your life is already in motion. One of the hardest things to do in life is to trust God when you don't see the whole picture. We often want to rush things, to make things happen according to our own timing, but God's plan works in perfect harmony with His wisdom. He knows what you need when you need it. Trusting in God's process means having the patience to wait, the perseverance to endure, and the faith to believe that what He has for you will come at the right time. Think about the importance of vision. Without vision, life is like walking through a fog. You can't see the future, you can't see the end result. But when you have a clear vision, when you know where you are going, every challenge becomes a part of the journey. A clear vision fuels perseverance. It keeps you going when times get tough and when the road ahead seems uncertain. Vision is what allows you to see beyond the temporary difficulties and to focus on the long-term goal. That dream God has placed in your heart is not just a wish, it is a promise. Even though the road may be difficult, your vision helps you keep moving forward. In the face of adversity, let your vision be stronger than your circumstances. You may be thinking, I have tried and failed and tried again, but let me remind you, failure is not the end. It is merely a stepping stone to something greater. Every successful person has encountered failure at some point in their journey. But it is in failure that we often discover our greatest strength. Failure does not define you, it refines you. Think about the story of Thomas Edison, who failed thousands of times before perfecting the light bulb. If he had given up after each failure, where would we be today? Failure is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become better. Adversity is a training ground for greatness. God allows you to experience failure not as punishment, but as preparation for what's ahead. There is a temptation to get discouraged when things don't happen on our timeline, when progress feels slow or non-existent. But remember, God's timing is perfect. His delays are not denials. The blessings you are waiting for are on their way, and they will come at just the right moment. You may not see it now, but God is working behind the scenes, aligning circumstances, preparing people, and opening doors that you cannot even imagine. What you are waiting for is not being delayed, it is being prepared. The Bible tells us that God makes all things beautiful in His time. If something hasn't happened yet, it's because it's not time yet. When God's blessings arrive, they will be worth the wait. Sometimes we pray for God to remove obstacles, to move mountains, or to change our circumstances. But in many cases, what we really need is not for the mountain to move, but for the strength to climb it. God has already placed within you the power to overcome. The challenges you are facing are opportunities for you to tap into your inner strength, to discover gifts and abilities you never knew you had. God has placed greatness inside of you. The mountains in your life are there to unlock that greatness. It's in overcoming the challenges that you will uncover the fullness of your potential. You are not just being tested, you are being prepared for what lies ahead. So I urge you today, do not give up. Every challenge, every delay, every failure, every setback is part of the process that is shaping you into the person God has called you to be. Your destiny is unfolding even when you don't see it. The best is yet to come. What God has in store for you is beyond anything you can imagine. You are on the verge of something amazing. Keep going, keep trusting, and keep believing that the promise God made to you will come to pass. Your breakthrough is on the way, and it will be more than worth the wait. Faith is one of the most powerful forces in our lives. It's the foundation on which we stand when everything else seems to be shaking around us. Faith in the process means trusting God's timing and believing in His plan, even when the journey ahead is unclear. There will be moments in life when the path before you seems uncertain, when it feels like you're walking in the dark. In those times, it's easy to become anxious, to want to rush ahead, or to take matters into your own hands. But God calls us to trust Him, not just when we see the road ahead, but when we don't see it at all. You may be in a season right now where you can't understand what God is doing. Perhaps you've been waiting for an answer, for a breakthrough, or for direction, and it feels like you've been waiting forever. But the key is this: faith is not just believing that God will do something, it's believing that God is doing something, even when we can't see it. The Bible reminds us that we walk by faith, not by sight. This means we don't need to see the full picture in order to trust that God is at work behind the scenes. His plan is greater than anything we can fathom, and His timing is perfect. Even when you can't see the results immediately, God is working all things together for your good. Think of the journey of Abraham, who was promised a son, Isaac, by God. God spoke to him and said that through Isaac, Abraham would become the father of many nations. But for years, Abraham faced uncertainty. His wife Sarah was barren, and they were both advanced in age. It seemed impossible. Yet Abraham trusted God's promise even when the timing seemed completely off. In the waiting, Abraham's faith grew. He didn't have all the answers, but he trusted that God's plan would unfold in due time. And as we know, Isaac was born when everything appeared to be against it. God's promises are not dependent on your circumstances, they are dependent on His faithfulness. Just because you don't see immediate results doesn't mean that God is not working. When we're in the process, it's easy to focus on the lack of immediate results or the delay in answers. But sometimes the process itself is the preparation. God is preparing you for what He has for you by teaching you patience, trust, and reliance on His wisdom. Think of a seed that has been planted in the soil. For a time, there is no sign of growth. The seed is buried, unseen, and even though it seems as though nothing is happening, something is taking place beneath the surface. The seed is developing its roots, and in time it will sprout and grow into something beautiful. Your faith in God's process is like that seed. Even when you can't see what's happening, God is working in the hidden places to bring forth His promises in your life. Trusting the process doesn't mean passively waiting for things to happen. It means actively participating in faith, moving forward, and doing what God has called you to do in the present moment. It means keeping your focus on the promise, not the problem. Don't allow temporary difficulties to distract you from the vision that God has placed in your heart. The vision He has given you is still alive, and no setback can destroy it. Keep moving, keep believing, and keep trusting that He will bring you through. Faith in the process is the belief that in the fullness of time, God will bring about His perfect will for your life. One of the most challenging aspects of faith is waiting, especially when you don't understand why things are taking longer than you expected. It's natural to wonder, why is this taking so long? But understand this: God's timing is never off. His delays are not denials. When we trust God's process, we are surrendering to the reality that He knows what we need when we need it better than we ever could. Sometimes the things we think we want are not the things that we truly need. God sees the bigger picture, and His timing is a reflection of His love and wisdom for our lives. The truth is, God's plan is better than your plan. Our human perspective is limited. We see only a small portion of the puzzle, but God sees the whole picture. The Bible tells us that His ways are higher than our ways and His thoughts higher than our thoughts. What we think might be a setback or a delay is actually a part of God's perfect plan for us. Just as a builder uses precise plans to construct a house, God is meticulously building the foundation of your life. Trusting in the process means trusting that God is working every detail together for your good. Even in the moments when you feel uncertain or frustrated, know that you are being shaped for something greater. Faith in the process is about enduring the journey, believing that God is faithful, and trusting in His plan, no matter how unclear the road may seem. It is in this process that God strengthens us, refines us, and prepares us to receive His greatest blessings. Don't allow the uncertainties of life to steal your trust in God. Hold on to His promises, believe in His perfect timing, and have confidence that His plan for you is unfolding, even when you cannot yet see the full picture. One of the most transformative gifts you can have in life is a clear vision. The power of vision is immense because it directs your focus, fuels your perseverance, and keeps you moving forward even when challenges seem insurmountable. Vision is what sets the course for your life. And it is through vision that you can endure any obstacle that comes your way. Vision isn't just about seeing what's ahead in the distance, it's about seeing beyond your current circumstances to the greater purpose that God has for you. It's easy to become overwhelmed by the problems we face. Life has a way of throwing obstacles in our path, and when we focus on those problems, it can feel as though we are stuck in a never-ending cycle of struggle. However, vision helps us see beyond the problem. It shifts our focus from what is currently happening to what God has promised will come to pass. When you keep your eyes on the promise rather than on the problem, you give yourself the strength to persevere. The key to overcoming challenges is not just acknowledging the difficulty, but recognizing that it is temporary and that something greater is ahead. Consider the life of Joseph, who experienced betrayal, imprisonment, and hardship. His brothers sold him into slavery, and he ended up in an Egyptian prison, falsely accused of a crime he did not commit. Yet, in the midst of all his struggles, Joseph never lost sight of the vision God had given him. When he was a young man, God showed him a vision of greatness, that his family would one day bow before him. That vision became the driving force behind his perseverance. Joseph could have easily focused on his problems, the betrayal, the injustice, the loneliness, but instead, he kept his eyes on the promise God had made. That vision allowed him to endure and eventually see the fulfillment of God's plan in his life, as he rose to power in Egypt and saved his family from famine. Vision is what gives you the strength to keep moving when the journey is difficult. It's what propels you forward when the odds are stacked against you. A person without vision is like a ship without a rudder, tossed around by the winds and currents, directionless and lost. But a person with vision knows where they're headed, and every step, no matter how difficult, brings them closer to the goal. A clear vision fuels perseverance. It gives you the motivation to keep going when everything around you seems to be falling apart. Vision is also powerful because it keeps your focus on the long-term outcome rather than on immediate discomforts. When you are chasing a vision, the temporary difficulties and delays do not discourage you, because you know that what you are working toward is greater than the pain you are currently experiencing. Vision gives you the ability to see the end result before it even arrives. You begin to live in the reality of what you know God has promised, even though it hasn't yet materialized in the natural. This is what Hebrews 11:1 talks about when it says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Vision is an act of faith. It is seeing what God has promised and holding on to that promise, even when it seems far off. Think about the example of Nehemiah. who was called by God to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Nehemiah had a clear vision of the restoration of his people, but when he arrived, he faced tremendous opposition. The people around him mocked him, the work was grueling, and the conditions were far from ideal. Yet Nehemiah never lost sight of his vision. He knew that the task at hand was not just about rebuilding a physical wall, but about restoring the dignity and future of his people. The vision of restoration was bigger than the obstacles. Nehemiah's clarity of purpose kept him steadfast in the face of adversity, and the walls were rebuilt because he refused to allow the challenges to dictate his actions. When you have a vision, you begin to make decisions that align with the future you are trying to create. Vision is not just something you see, it is something that shapes the way you live today. It influences how you spend your time, how you invest your energy, and how you navigate the trials that come your way. A vision will give you the courage to take steps forward, even when you don't have all the answers or when the path is not clear. One of the most important things about vision is that it helps you see what others may not see. While people around you may be focused on the obstacles, vision helps you focus on the opportunity. It keeps you from being discouraged by what is visible and empowers you to press on toward what is yet to be seen. Vision is not limited by current circumstances, it transcends the present and allows you to see the possibilities ahead. It is the key to maintaining hope and motivation, even when the way forward is unclear. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Philippians, says, "I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus." Paul had a vision of the prize, the ultimate calling of God on his life. And he pressed forward with that vision in mind, no matter what obstacles came his way. When you have a vision, you are able to press through the struggles with perseverance, knowing that what lies ahead is worth the journey. So what is the vision that God has placed on your heart? What promise has He given you? When the challenges of life come, don't focus on the immediate obstacles. Keep your eyes on the promise. Let the vision God has given you propel you forward. Let it fuel your perseverance. And let it remind you that the difficulties you face today are nothing compared to the incredible future God has in store for you. A clear vision will keep you going when everything else says stop. It will guide you through the storm and lead you to the fulfillment of God's promise for your life. Resilience is one of the most important qualities you can cultivate in life, especially when you face adversity. Life is not a straight path. There are ups and downs, twists and turns, and moments when it feels like everything is falling apart. Resilience in adversity is the ability to bounce back, to rise up from setbacks, and to keep going even when failure seems inevitable. It is rooted in the belief that failure is not the end, but a stepping stone to greater success. It's essential to understand that failure is a natural part of the process. Too often we are taught to fear failure, to avoid it at all costs, and to view it as a sign of defeat. But failure in reality is a necessary component of growth. Every great success story has a backstory filled with failures, mistakes, and setbacks. Failure is not an indicator that you are not capable. It is simply an opportunity to learn, grow, and come back stronger. It is part of the process that leads to your ultimate breakthrough. Think of Thomas Edison, who famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Edison's resilience in the face of failure is legendary. He faced countless setbacks and rejections, but instead of allowing those failures to define him, he used them as lessons. Failure was not the end of the road for Edison, it was merely a step toward finding the solution. Each failure brought him closer to the discovery of the electric light bulb, and through his perseverance, he changed the world. Edison's story is a powerful reminder that failure is not final. It is simply a stepping stone in the journey toward success. Resilience is about changing your perspective on failure. Instead of seeing failure as a stop sign, you must learn to view it as a detour. A setback does not mean that you are finished, it means that you are being redirected. Think about the story of the Apostle Paul, who faced immense adversity throughout his life. He was beaten, imprisoned, shipwrecked, and faced constant opposition. Yet in his letters, Paul speaks about his sufferings not as moments of defeat, but as opportunities for growth. In 2 Corinthians 4:8-9, Paul says, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." Paul's resilience was rooted in his belief that every hardship was an opportunity to grow stronger and move closer to his purpose. When you are in the midst of adversity, it's easy to become discouraged and to think that your dreams are out of reach. But it is important to remember that what you are going through is not the end of your story. It is merely a chapter. Every setback, every failure, and every challenge you face is helping to refine you for something greater. God uses adversity to build resilience, character, and strength. He allows us to go through difficult times because He knows they are necessary for us to become the people He has destined us to be. Resilience requires a deep sense of belief and faith in the bigger picture. Even when things don't make sense in the moment, you have to trust that God has a plan and that He is using everything in your life for your good. Romans 8:28 tells us that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. This means that no matter how difficult the trial may be, God is at work in it, shaping you, preparing you, and positioning you for your next level of success. What looks like a failure today may very well be the stepping stone to the victory of tomorrow. One of the keys to resilience is persistence. You can't give up when things don't go as planned. You have to keep going, even when you don't see immediate results. Persistence is what separates those who succeed from those who give up. The journey is rarely easy, but the reward is always greater for those who endure. When you push through adversity, when you persist in the face of challenges, you build resilience, and you become stronger, wiser, and more prepared for what lies ahead. Think about the story of the bamboo tree. The bamboo seed is planted, and for the first 5 years it shows no visible signs of growth. But beneath the surface, the roots are growing deep and strong, preparing the plant for what's to come. Then in just a matter of weeks, the bamboo shoots up to over 80 feet tall. The bamboo's growth was not immediate, but every moment of apparent inactivity was necessary for its rapid growth in the right season. In the same way, your moments of apparent failure or struggle are building the roots of your resilience, preparing you for the breakthrough that is coming. When you encounter failure, remind yourself that it is not a reflection of your worth or your potential. Failure is not a statement about your abilities, it is simply a part of the process. Each failure brings with it valuable lessons that prepare you for the success that is just around the corner. Failure is not the end, it is simply the beginning of a new level of growth. Resilience is built by having a mindset that refuses to quit, that refuses to allow failure to define you. It is a mindset that says, I will not be defeated. I will learn, I will grow, and I will rise again. It is the belief that adversity is not a sign to stop, but an opportunity to press forward with even greater determination. So as you face the challenges ahead, remember that every setback is not the end, it is a stepping stone to greater success. The strength and perseverance you are building today will lead to the breakthroughs of tomorrow. Failure is not final, but a stepping stone to your future, and resilience is the key that unlocks the door to your destiny. Keep moving forward and trust that you are being prepared for something greater. Your greatest success is just ahead, and your resilience will carry you there. When we are walking through life and working toward our goals, it's easy to become frustrated when things don't happen as quickly as we expect. We live in a fast-paced world, and waiting for things to unfold can feel like an unnecessary burden. But God's perfect timing is a reminder that delays are not denials. Even when things don't happen when we want them to, God's blessings are always on time. His timing is perfect, and it is always for our benefit. It's important to remember that God does not operate according to the world's timetable. We are often in a hurry wanting answers, blessings, or breakthroughs right now, but God's view of time is different from ours. While we see time in terms of urgency, God sees time in terms of preparation. He knows exactly when everything needs to fall into place, and He is orchestrating every detail of your life with perfect precision. His delays are not signs that He is withholding from you. They are opportunities for you to grow, to learn patience, and to trust in His plan. In the Bible, we see many examples of God's perfect timing at work. One of the most powerful is the story of Sarah and Abraham. When God promised Abraham that he would become the father of many nations, it seemed impossible. Sarah was barren and well past the age of childbearing, and yet God promised them a child. The promise was delayed, but it was not denied. Abraham and Sarah waited for many years, enduring disappointment and doubt along the way. But God's timing was not delayed, it was perfect. When the time was right, Sarah gave birth to Isaac, and the promises of God began to unfold. Isaac became the father of Jacob, whose descendants became the 12 tribes of Israel. The delay in the promise did not mean the promise was not coming, it simply meant that God was preparing them for something greater. In the same way, the delays in your life are not a reflection of God's inability or unwillingness to bless you. They are part of His perfect plan to shape you for the future He has for you. Sometimes what we think is a delay is actually a divine detour, a redirection to a better path, a deeper preparation, or a more favorable opportunity. God is not in the business of denying His children. He is in the business of blessing them at the perfect moment. Look at the life of David, who was anointed as king but had to wait many years before he actually assumed the throne. During that time, he faced hardship, opposition, and uncertainty. He was hunted by King Saul and had to endure many trials before he could step into the fullness of God's promise. Yet David didn't give up or grow bitter. He understood that God's timing was not only about when he would be made king, but about preparing him for the responsibility and authority that came with the position. The waiting period was a time of character development, building his faith and trust in God. When the time was right, David was crowned king, and he fulfilled his purpose in God's plan. God's delays are often moments where He is preparing us for the fullness of the blessing. Sometimes we want to rush the process, but God knows that if we were to receive what we desire too early, we might not be ready for it. We might not have the maturity, the wisdom, or the strength to handle it properly. God knows that the waiting period is an essential part of our development. He is shaping us, refining us, and equipping us to steward the blessings He has in store for us. When the moment finally arrives, we will be ready, and we will understand that the wait was worth it. Another example from Scripture is the story of the Israelites' exodus from Egypt. God promised to deliver them from slavery and lead them to the promised land, but their journey took longer than expected. They wandered in the desert for 40 years of struggle, frustration, and disappointment. Yet God was with them every step of the way. The delay was not a denial of God's promise. It was part of His process to prepare the Israelites for the land He had promised them. God used those years of wandering to teach them dependence on Him, to build their trust, and to refine their faith. Sometimes when we face delays in our own lives, we may feel like we're being denied the desires of our hearts. But in reality, we are being prepared. God's perfect timing works to position us in the right place at the right time, so that when the blessings come, we are able to fully receive and appreciate them. Trusting in God's timing means believing that He knows exactly what He is doing. It requires letting go of our own plans and submitting to His greater purpose. We have to trust that His delay is part of the bigger picture, one that will bring about a greater blessing than we could ever imagine. His timing is always aligned with His love for us. When we align our hearts with His will, we find peace in the waiting, knowing that He is working all things together for our good. The truth is, God's perfect timing is never too early or too late. It is always just right. While we may not understand why things are taking longer than we expected, we can trust that God is not ignoring us or withholding His blessings. He is preparing us for the moment when He will release His promises into our lives. His blessings are always on time, and his delays are simply part of his process to make sure we are ready to receive all that he has in store. So when you find yourself waiting, whether it's for a breakthrough, a promise to be fulfilled, or a desire of your heart to be met, remember these delays are not denials. God's blessings are always on time, and he is faithful to complete the work he has started in you. Trust his timing, stay faithful, and believe that in the fullness of time, everything will fall into place exactly as he has planned. Your moment is coming, and when it does, you will know that God's timing was perfect all along. Unleashing potential is one of the most powerful truths we can embrace in life. Too often we view challenges and obstacles as threats to our progress, but in reality, they are opportunities to discover the hidden strength and gifts that God has placed in us. When we face difficulties, we are not just encountering problems to overcome, we are being invited to tap into a deeper well of potential that we may never have realized existed within us. Each of us was created by God with a unique purpose, a set of gifts, talents, and abilities that are meant to make a significant impact on the world. But in order to fully realize this potential, we must often go through the fire of adversity. It is in these challenging moments that we begin to uncover the strength and gifts we didn't even know we had. The Bible teaches us in 2 Corinthians 12:9, but he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." This verse reminds us that God's power is most evident when we are at our weakest, when we are facing challenges that seem insurmountable. In those moments, God's grace equips us and his strength is made perfect in us. Think about the life of Moses. He was raised as an Egyptian prince, but found himself exiled in the desert after making a mistake that cost him everything. For years, Moses lived a quiet, humble life as a shepherd, far removed from the grandeur of his royal past. But when God called Moses to deliver the Israelites from slavery, he felt ill-equipped and inadequate. He doubted his abilities, asking, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" But God saw something in Moses that Moses didn't yet recognize in himself. The very challenges Moses faced, the exile, the years of obscurity, were shaping and preparing him for the moment when God would use him to lead a nation. The hardships Moses endured were opportunities to unleash the hidden potential within him, preparing him for the greatness that God had planned. In the same way, God uses the challenges in our lives to reveal the gifts and strengths he has already placed within us. Difficult situations are often the testing ground for our hidden abilities. When we are pressed, stretched, and tested, it's in those moments that we often realize just how much strength we truly have. The person who faces adversity with faith and determination becomes stronger, wiser, and more capable than they were before. Take the story of David, the young shepherd who was anointed king but spent years on the run from King Saul. In the wilderness, David faced danger, loneliness, and despair. But it was during those years that he learned how to fight, how to trust God, and how to lead. The challenges David encountered were not setbacks, they were opportunities for him to discover the hidden strength and leadership gifts that God had placed within him. When the time came for David to face Goliath, it was not his size or strength that gave him victory, but his faith and the skills he had developed during his time in the fields. David's challenges revealed the potential that had been growing in him all along. Sometimes we view our challenges as obstacles that stand in the way of our dreams, but God sees them as the very means by which he prepares us for those dreams. Challenges are the tools he uses to refine our character, sharpen our skills, and develop our resilience. If we are willing to face them with the right attitude, we will emerge stronger, more capable, and more in tune with the potential God has placed inside of us. Think about the Apostle Paul, who faced persecution, imprisonment, and shipwrecks throughout his ministry. Despite the immense challenges, Paul wrote some of the most powerful letters that still inspire believers today. He didn't view his hardships as limitations, but as opportunities to experience the fullness of God's grace and to discover the depth of his own faith. In Philippians 4:13, Paul declares, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." His challenges revealed the strength of God within him and the ability to accomplish great things despite the odds. In our own lives, We must learn to view challenges not as roadblocks, but as opportunities to unleash the hidden potential within us. Every trial, every struggle is an invitation to grow, to discover new strengths, and to uncover the gifts God has placed inside of us. When we face difficulties, we are often tempted to give up or to retreat, but this is the moment when we need to push forward. The strength and gifts we need are already inside us. It's through perseverance and faith that we unlock the potential to overcome and thrive. Remember that God never allows us to face a challenge without providing the strength to rise above it. In fact, He often allows us to experience the stretching and the refining process so that we can tap into the fullness of our potential. The struggles we face are not in vain. They are part of God's divine design to shape us into the people He created us to be. So the next time you face a challenge, don't shrink back. Instead, embrace it as an opportunity to discover and unleash the gifts, the strength, and the potential that God has already placed inside of you. Challenges are not setbacks, they are stepping stones toward greater growth and fulfillment. And as you persevere, you will begin to see just how much strength and greatness God has already placed within you. Through each difficulty, you will uncover more of your true potential and be positioned for the remarkable destiny God has in store for you. In conclusion, my friends, understand that the challenges you face today are not meant to break you, they are designed to make you. Every delay, every setback, every trial is part of the divine process that is shaping you for the greatness that God has already ordained for your life. Don't look at your circumstances and think you are being denied. Rather, look at them as opportunities to discover strength you never knew you had, to unlock gifts that have been hidden within you from the beginning. Remember, God's purpose for you is not dependent on the obstacles you encounter, but on your response to them. When you face adversity, when you experience delays, when you feel as though your dreams are slipping through your fingers, know this: God is still at work. His timing is perfect. His process is flawless. And His blessings are on the way. You may not see it now, but every challenge you face is preparing you for something far greater than you can imagine. You are not defeated, you are being developed. So do not give up. Do not allow the storms of life to convince you that your destiny is out of reach. Stand firm in your faith, keep your vision clear, and trust the process. God has already put inside of you everything you need to succeed. Your potential is waiting to be unleashed, and the world is waiting for you to rise to the fullness of your calling. Remember, failure is not final, and delays are not denials. You are being prepared for greatness, and God has something amazing in store for you. Keep going. Keep believing. Keep trusting. Your time is coming. And when it does, you will see that every step, every challenge, every moment of waiting was leading you to your moment of destiny. The best is yet to come.